Most people think inequality comes from what people do today, from effort, from choices, from motivation. But in most systems, access is determined by what happened long before anyone in the room was born. History doesn't disappear, it compounds. We're taught a simple story that if someone has more, it's because they worked harder. If someone has less, it's because they didn't. That access is something you earn in real time, that today's outcomes are created by today's decisions. It sounds fair, it feels motivating, and it keeps attention focused on the individuals. But that story quietly hides how modern systems actually work, because most systems were not built today. They were built decades ago and then updated, patched, and layered on top of what already existed. And whatever advantages or barriers were present at the beginning get carried forward. Modern systems do not start from zero, they inherit their structure. Banking systems, housing markets, school districts, hiring networks, transportation maps, and zoning laws. All of them are built on top of earlier versions. And when those systems were created, some people were allowed to accumulate and others were blocked from doing so. That initial imbalance becomes part of the architecture. It shows up as property values, credit access, school funding, neighborhood investment, and professional networks. Even when no one today is intentionally excluding anyone, the system still allocates based on what already exists. That is what a legacy system is. It does not ask who deserves access, it follows where access already is. Imagine two families buying houses in 1970. One buys in a neighborhood that banks invested in. The other buys in a neighborhood that banks avoided. Over time, one home increases in value, the other barely moves. 50 years later, those houses are not just buildings, they are financial engines. One family now has home equity, collateral, borrowing power, and a down payment for the next generation. The other does not. Their children don't just inherit houses, they inherit leverage, where they can live, which schools they attend, how much debt they start with, and how risky their financial lives are allowed to be. No new discrimination was required. The system kept compounding the original pattern on its own. The same thing happens with education. School funding is tied to property values. Property values are tied to historical investments, which means some schools get more resources, more counselors, more advanced classes, and more college placements. Those students then move into better universities, better internships, and better first jobs, which then places them into stronger professional networks, higher income trajectories, and more stable lives. Again, no one has to intend this. The pipeline already knows where to send opportunity. So, when people ask, why do the same groups always seem to have more access? The answer is not behavior. Its trajectory. Systems allocate based on accumulated advantage. They do not reset between generations. They route money, opportunity, and stability towards wherever momentum already exists. That is why inequality persists, even when the rules look neutral. When you look at modern inequality, you're not seeing a snapshot, you're seeing a time lapse. You're watching decades of structural allocation playing forward into the present. And until systems are designed to account for history, they'll keep reproducing it. Because legacy systems don't forget, they remember.